As the task of the 4 sacred pagodas came to a close, the journey to the ancient sacred abyss was also nearing its end. Some began to leave one after another, while others, who had gained little, were unwilling to give up. They decided to make use of the last bit of time to continue searching, hoping to find other opportunities. Meanwhile, Chen and his group, already with their hands full of rewards, did not linger any longer in the ancient sacred abyss. Instead, they activated their jade talismans and left the abyss. Sacred abyss continent, somewhere. The space twisted as several figures appeared. They gazed at the still dim world around them, but couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. The ancient sacred abyss felt like an ancient prison, and being within it always gave people a sense of oppression. Let's go. We'll head back to Sacred Abyss City first. Chen waved his hand. The red flame old immortal was still waiting in the city for good news about Luo Li. Upon hearing this, everyone nodded. The ancient sacred abyss was filled with dangers, and at this moment, they too longed to enter the safety of Sacred Abyss City and truly relax. The group accelerated, moving at full speed. After several hours, the dim world gradually brightened, and in the distance, a majestic city was beginning to take shape. Whoosh, whoosh. Lights streaked across the sky from all directions, eventually landing at the city gates and entering the city. The entire city exuded a vibrant, prosperous atmosphere. This lively vitality stood in stark contrast to the desolate ruins of the ancient sacred abyss, which made Chen and his group feel a slight relaxation in their tense bodies. They exchanged glances, smiled, and then transformed into streaks of light, heading for the city gates and re-entering Sacred Abyss City. As always, the city was bustling with life, people coming and going, full of energy. However, Chen's group noticed something unusual. Many people were frequently looking up, gazing with complex expressions at a certain place. Curious, Chen and the others also looked up. To their surprise, it was the Demon Slayer monument standing at the center of the city. As their eyes traveled upward, they halted in their tracks. The expressions on their faces became increasingly astonished. What is that? Longxiang rubbed his eyes. He thought he saw 2 demon-slaying kings at the top, and one of them was named Chen. Wen Qingxian, Wen Ziyu, and the others were also shocked. After a brief moment, they quickly turned to Chen, their eyes filled with disbelief. You're not telling us that Chen is you, are you? They all knew very well what a demon-slaying king symbolized. It was a position in the upper echelons of the Great Thousand Palace, higher even than guest elders or regular elders. Facing a demon-slaying king, even a superpower like the Wen family would maintain respect and courtesy. Luo Li, too, looked at Chen with her bright eyes, filled with some confusion. She had processed her own demon-slaying order alongside him, but at the time, she was still a low-level demon slayer. How had Chen suddenly ascended to such a terrifying rank as a demon-slaying king? Under the group's curious stares, Chen couldn't help but rub his face, giving a wry smile. He then recounted the story of how he had absorbed a fragment of the heavenly demon emperor's soul into the demon-slaying order. Everyone listened, wide-eyed, and couldn't help but exclaim, "Is that even possible?" Chen shrugged. "Looks like it works." The others exchanged glances. Though Chen's method was somewhat opportunistic, clearly, not everyone could do it. The heavenly demon emperor's remnant soul, there were 4 fragments within the 4 sacred pagodas, but only Chen had succeeded. However, Chen's rank was still rather low. "You really have rewritten the history of the Great Thousand Palace," Wen Qingxian teased. "In all of history, the Great Thousand Palace has never had such a weak demon-slaying king." Chen smiled helplessly. At the time, he had simply acted on a whim, wanting to try it out, never imagining it would actually succeed. "Well, it all depends on whether the Great Thousand Palace recognizes it," Luo Li said softly. Everyone nodded. If the Great Thousand Palace didn't acknowledge this, Chen might lose his status as a demon-slaying king. However, Chen seemed unconcerned. He had only tried it out for fun, and if the Great Thousand Palace didn't recognize it, it would save him some trouble. As they spoke, they had already arrived outside the Grand Great Thousand Pavilion and stepped inside. Inside the Great Thousand Pavilion, the atmosphere was as lively as ever, filled with a loud and bustling noise. Yet, faintly, Mu Chen and the others could still hear that most of the discussions were about him, the newly appointed demon-slaying king. This left him somewhat helpless, shaking his head. He hadn't expected that a spontaneous decision would thrust him into the spotlight. By now, there must be countless demon slayers eager to see if this new demon-slaying king truly had 3 heads and 6 arms. Haha, isn't this our newly appointed demon-slaying king? Just as Mu Chen was about to quietly slip in, a mocking laugh suddenly rang out. The entire Great Thousand Pavilion fell silent. Countless eyes immediately turned toward him, their gazes burning with heat, as if flames were focused on Mu Chen. Is he really the new demon-slaying king, Mu Chen? How can his strength be just half a step into great perfection? How on earth did this guy become the demon-slaying king? The silence lasted only a moment before a wave of hushed chatter filled the air. Countless gazes were filled with doubt, clearly questioning the legitimacy of Mu Chen's newly earned title. Suddenly becoming the center of attention, Mu Chen shot a glare at the mischievous red flame old immortal not far away. Then, with Luo Li and the others in tow, he walked forward, speaking without a hint of courtesy. Do you still want the supreme spirit heavenly light? Red flame old immortal's eyes brightened, his expression filled with delight as he looked at Luo Li. You really succeeded? Though he had expected a good chance for Luo Li's success, the confirmation still left red flame old immortal thrilled. Luo Li, however, did not respond immediately. She glanced at Mu Chen with a smile playing on her lips. All right, you 2 little ones are teaming up to bully this old man. Seeing the obvious intent to stand up for Mu Chen, red flame old immortal chuckled in a disgruntled manner. He then turned around and shouted at the still chattering demon slayers in the Great Thousand Pavilion. Shut up! A burst of heavenly supreme pressure spread out, and in an instant, the entire Great Thousand Pavilion fell silent. Even the most rebellious demon slayers, when faced with a heavenly supreme, shrank back, no longer daring to look in that direction. Suppressing the crowd, red flame old immortal rubbed his hands together, flashing a flattering grin at Luo Li. Seeing this, Luo Li finally smiled gracefully, her pale, delicate chin tilting slightly as she spoke. I did not fail. By some stroke of luck, I gained the inheritance of the supreme spirit ancestor. Red flame old immortal let out a long breath, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. The problem that had troubled the supreme spirit ancient clan for years had finally been solved. In that case, let's leave. Luo Li, you'll accompany me to the supreme spirit ancient clan. From now on, you are our saintess. Red flame old immortal waved his hand grandly. When Luo Li heard that she was to go with red flame old immortal to the supreme spirit ancient clan, it meant she would be separated from Mu Chen. She froze for a moment, about to speak up, when suddenly, a cold sneer rang out from outside the Great Thousand Pavilion. Leave? Not so easily. Inside the Great Thousand Pavilion, countless eyes turned toward the door, only to see a group marching in with great force. At the forefront were the 2 heavenly supreme figures from the floating pagoda ancient clan, Mo-In and Dark Radiance. Behind them followed Xian Luo and Mo-Xian, both of whom fixed their dark, ominous gazes on Mu Chen. The 2 heavenly supremes, both locking their sights on Mu Chen, strode forward, their heavenly supreme pressure faintly exuding, making Mu Chen's body feel unnaturally heavy. Mu Chen's eyes turned cold as he glanced at Xian Luo and Mo-Xian. It was clear that they were behind this. Heh, 2 shameless old men, bullying a junior like this. What kind of ability is that? A frail figure stepped forward from the side, blocking Mu Chen's path. He absorbed the heavenly supreme pressure from Dark Radiance and Mo-In entirely. It was, of course, Red Flame Old Immortal. Red Flame, this is an internal matter of the floating pagoda ancient clan. It has nothing to do with you. Dark Radiance's eyes narrowed as he spoke. Elder Mo-In, his gaze as cold as ice, turned to Mu Chen and barked, Boy, if you know what's good for you, hand over the 8-fold pagoda now. Otherwise, today, we'll take you back to the clan for punishment. Mu Chen sneered. You lack the ability to gain the approval of the floating pagoda ancestor and inherit the legacy. Who can you blame for that? Xian Luo and Mo-Xian's faces instantly darkened. Elder Mo-Yin's voice deepened as he said, That was merely the ancestors' way of comforting you to deal with the demons. But the eightfold pagoda is not something you are fit to possess. Mo'in, your shamelessness is truly growing by the day. If the floating pagoda ancestor knew about this, he'd be so enraged he might even come back to life, the red flame old immortal remarked with a sigh. Hearing the mockery in the red flame old immortal's voice, Elder Mo Yin's eyelid twitched involuntarily. His face darkened like water as he fixed his cold gaze on the red flame old immortal and slowly said, "Red flame, are you really planning to interfere in this matter? Mu Chun was brought here by me, and I will not allow you to take him away," the red flame old immortal replied, detecting the coldness in Mo Yin's tone. However, he sneered without hesitation. Mo Yin exchanged a glance with Blacklight, both of their eyes flashing with cold light. Today, they had to take Mu Chun with them. The eightfold pagoda absolutely could not fall into his hands. In that case, the two of them no longer hid their heavenly supreme auras. With a roar, their energies exploded outward, darkening the sky over Sacred Abyss City. A terrifying pressure swept through the great Thousand Pavilion. Their gazes locked onto the red flame old immortal like sharp blades. "Then, we'll have no choice but to forcefully take this sin child with us." Boom. As soon as Mo Yin and Blacklight spoke, the space around them collapsed, starting from their positions. The two terrifying forces caused the entire Great Thousand Pavilion to tremble slightly. However, they were careful in their actions, only compressing their power within their immediate surroundings without destroying the entire Great Thousand Pavilion. After all, this was the territory of the Great Thousand Palace, and even the floating pagoda ancient clan had to show respect when facing it. Even so, the overwhelming heavenly supreme pressure emanating from them was enough to terrify any top-tier Earth Supreme experts. "Today, I'll see if you have the ability to snatch Mu Chun from my hands." Red Flame Old Immortal's eyes flared with anger as he saw the two old men acting so domineering. He let out a cold laugh, and terrifying pressure surged from his body, the red spiritual energy around him boiling like magma, causing the temperature inside the Great Thousand Pavilion to rise sharply. Standing in front of Mu Chun, he blocked the heavenly supreme pressure from Mo Yin and Blacklight. Seeing that Red Flame Old Immortal was determined to protect Mu Chun, Mo Yin and Blacklight's ancient faces grew even darker, but they showed no sign of backing down. They had made up their minds. No matter what, they would capture Mu Chun today. The eightfold pagoda absolutely could not fall into his hands. A thought flashed through their minds. Mo Yin and Blacklight exchanged a glance before Blacklight took a step forward, his palm slamming toward the red flame old immortal. The strike, seemingly casual, was filled with dark spiritual energy that rapidly compressed in his palm, eventually forming a black sun no larger than a human head. This black sun emitted no light, but everyone could feel the terrifying power contained within it. If unleashed recklessly, it could turn the entire Sacred Abyss City into an unfathomable pit. When the heavenly supreme powers made a move, they displayed unimaginable destructive force. Seeing the black sun in Blacklight's hand, Red Flame Old Immortal's expression tightened, and he didn't dare to hesitate. His face reddened as he opened his mouth, releasing a flame that seemed to flow like magma. The flame trembled as if it would disappear at the slightest breath, but when it appeared, everyone could feel an overwhelming heat radiating from it, as if the very space was being scorched by the temperature. They all knew that this was the result of Blacklight and Red Flame Old Immortal restraining their power. Otherwise, if that flame were to escape, it would likely turn the surrounding area into an endless sea of fire. Sizzle! The black sun and the flame collided directly. There was no earth-shattering roar, but anyone could see that the two forces were eroding each other violently. The space where they collided continued to shatter under the pressure. At the same time, while Red Flame Old Immortal and Blacklight were engaged, Mo Yin's eyes glinted coldly as he stared at Mu Chun. With a sinister smile, he began walking toward him. Seeing this, Red Flame Old Immortal's face shifted slightly. He and Blacklight were locked in an intense standoff. If he retreated, Blacklight would take the initiative and suppress him. "You floating pagoda ancient clan are being too domineering. Are you trying to make an enemy of my supreme spirit ancient clan?" Red Flame Old Immortal said solemnly. Moine didn't slow down, sneering. Red Flame, you overestimate yourself. You don't represent the supreme spirit ancient clan. With that, his gaze grew even colder as it locked onto Mu Chun, resembling a hawk eyeing its prey. I'll see how long you, Sin Child, can keep struggling today. Behind them, Xian Luo and Moxin exchanged looks of delight as they watched the scene unfold. Their eyes, filled with a mix of smug pity, turned toward Mu Chun. So you've earned the ancestors' approval, and what of it? In the end, you still won't be able to protect the eightfold pagoda. Mu Chun looked at Moine, who was approaching with a murderous aura. Strangely, there was no trace of fear on his face. He knew that fear would be of no use. He raised his hand and shielded Luo Li behind him, his black eyes gleaming with cold light. Had this been before entering the ancient sacred abyss, facing a heavenly supreme like Moine, he would have had no choice but to flee. But now, not only had he reached half-step great perfection, he also possessed the trump cards of the Xianlong army and the eightfold pagoda. With those hidden cards, if he truly wanted to fight to the death, Moine might not be able to kill him so easily. If this old dog insisted on pushing him, then today, he'd show him that if he wanted to treat Mu Chun like a soft target, he'd need to be prepared to have his teeth shattered. River Granny. Just as Mu Chun's eyes flashed with killing intent, ready to unleash his trump cards and clash head-on with Moine, when Qing Xian suddenly shouted loudly from behind him. Swish! A ghostly figure appeared in front of Mu Chun. Dressed in a red robe, it was none other than the heavenly supreme of the Wen family, River Granny. She stood before Mu Chun, her icy gaze fixed on Moine. As her sleeve moved, the sound of rushing rivers seemed to echo from within her, faint but distinct. Moine halted in his tracks, his old face darkening. He stared at River Granny and said in a low, ominous tone, "Is the Wen family going to interfere in the matters of my floating pagoda ancient clan?" River Granny's eyelids fluttered slightly as she replied calmly, "The Wen family may not have the deep foundation of your floating pagoda ancient clan, but we know the importance of repaying kindness. This boy has helped Qing Xian and the others immensely, so as an old woman, I can't just stand by and watch you shamelessly bully him." Mo Yin's eyes burned with fury, but he didn't lash out immediately. Instead, he took a deep breath, staring at Mu Chun with a grim look. "I didn't expect there would be so many people protecting you." Mu Chun remained expressionless, his eyes flashing with a hint of murderous intent. "Too bad. No matter how many people try to protect you today, it's all useless." Moine sneered, then turned to the great thousand pavilion outside and cupped his fists. "Ninth Elder, please make your move." Sigh. Outside the great thousand pavilion, a sigh was heard, followed by the slow entrance of a hunched old man carrying a black staff. His gaunt face and dark eyes made him appear fragile, but his slow pace belied the fact that with a single step, he appeared right beside Moine, as though he'd shattered the very fabric of space. Though this old man gave off no powerful spiritual energy, his appearance caused Red Flame Old Immortal and River Granny to both change their expressions in surprise. "The ninth elder of the Floating Pagoda Ancient Clan, MOU?" Red Flame Old Immortal spoke in a low voice. "Immortal Grade Heavenly Supreme." River Granny's gaze sharpened. The Floating Pagoda Ancient Clan had even sent an Immortal Grade Heavenly Supreme to capture Mu Chun. Such figures were top tier even within the Floating Pagoda Ancient Clan. Yet, to personally take action against a half-step great perfection? The crowd in the Great Thousand Pavilion murmured in astonishment. Many demon slayers looked at Mu Chun with pity in their eyes. This guy sure knew how to stir up trouble, pulling so many heavenly supremes to act on his behalf. Mu Chun's expression grew dark. He hadn't expected that Moine and the others would be so cautious. To capture him, they had even called upon an immortal grade heavenly supreme. "Are you the Sin Child?" The old man with the black staff fixed his dark gaze on Mu Chun, his voice devoid of emotion. Mu Chun replied coldly, "Seems like your elder's words don't carry much weight within the Floating Pagoda Ancient Clan." From Qing Shuang's words, he already knew that his mother had made an agreement with the Floating Pagoda Ancient Clan's elder. But despite that, these heavenly supremes continued to appear one after another, clearly intending to ignore the agreement. In times of urgency, Exceptions are made. I'm sure the elder will understand. The old man Mou said in a leisurely tone. As long as you hand over the eightfold pagoda, I will let you go. Mu Chen's expression was indifferent as he slowly shook his head. With a slight motion of his hand, a stone talisman appeared in his grasp. It was the one given to him by the martial ancestor. In this situation, he might have no choice but to use it. Facing the spirit grade heavenly supreme, he might still have a chance to fight with all his hidden trump cards. But if it was an immortal grade opponent, unless he could push the mystic dragon army to its peak combat strength. Since you're so stubborn, I'll have to use my strength to crush yours. Mou sighed as he saw Mu Chen's refusal. He raised his black staff and stomped it lightly on the ground. A black light circle shot out from the staff, instantly sealing the space. Even the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was confined within that circle. Mu Chen immediately sensed the restrictive force and pursed his lips. He tightened his grip, ready to crush the stone talisman to summon the martial ancestor. Boom. However, just as he was about to break the talisman, a teacup suddenly shot through the air, slamming into the light circle and shattering it. The sudden turn of events startled Mou. He slowly lifted his head to see an elderly man in gray robes stepping out from behind the counter of the Great Thousand Pavilion. He was the leader of this division of the Great Thousand Palace. You people from the Futu ancient clan are pushing it too far, the gray-robed old man said lazily as he approached Mu Chen. Mou frowned. Does the Great Thousand Palace want to interfere? Although the Futu ancient clan was one of the 5 ancient clans, the Great Thousand Palace held an esteemed position in the Great Thousand World and was not afraid of them. This is an internal matter of my clan. If the Great Thousand Palace wants to interfere, it would be violating the rules, Mou replied slowly. The Great Thousand Palace was indeed highly respected, but it had its own code of conduct and never interfered in the affairs of other forces. It's not me breaking the rules, it's you. The gray-robed old man shook his head and retorted. With that, he turned his gaze to Mu Chen, his expression shifting with an intriguing look. He sighed in resignation, extending his hand. Give me the demon-slaying order. Mu Chen paused for a moment, but still took out the gleaming demon-slaying order and handed it to the old man. The gray-robed elder held the order in his hand and raised it with a smile towards Mou. In my Great Thousand Pavilion, you plan to target the demon-slaying king of the Great Thousand Palace. Don't you think you're violating the rules? A golden light soared from within the Great Thousand Pavilion, drawing the attention of everyone present. All eyes were now fixed on the dazzling golden token. At the end of the token, 3 dark red characters glowed with an extraordinary aura. Demon Slaying King. The demon slayers in the pavilion stared at the token with burning eyes, nearly drooling in excitement. They all understood what the title Demon Slaying King meant within the Great Thousand Palace. It was a position of true power within the Great Thousand Palace, ranking even higher than the guest elders, the high-ranking officials, and the division masters. These demon slayers had been fighting on the edge of life and death for years. What were they fighting for? It was to rise through the ranks, hoping one day they might become the demon-slaying king themselves, changing their fate completely. In the Great Thousand World, the demon-slaying king held a status that rivaled the leaders of the most powerful factions. This kid actually became the demon-slaying king. The other demon slayers glared at Mu Chen with jealousy, particularly those who had been struggling in the sacred abyss continent for years and were still stuck in the intermediate ranks. Their eyes were filled with longing, their envy nearly palpable. They clearly remembered that Mu Chen had only just obtained the demon-slaying order before entering the ancient sacred abyss. The demon-slaying order shone with golden light, while the 9th elder of the Futu ancient clan, his ancient face, gradually lost its composure. A grave expression flickered in his deep, dark eyes. Him? The demon-slaying king? I heard that the only demon-slaying king in the Great Thousand Palace right now is Chen Tian. When did a second one appear? Mou's voice was hoarse and deep as he spoke. He had just arrived in Sacred Abyss City and was unaware of the recent changes on the demon-slaying monument. Tower Master Lu, have you lost your mind? You actually recognize him as the demon-slaying king. Mo Yin and He Guang's faces darkened, their disbelief evident. Since when has such a weak demon-slaying king ever existed in the Great Thousand Palace? Don't you fear what will happen if this spreads? The reputation of the Great Thousand Palace will be ruined. Mo Yin's voice was sharp and full of reproach. Upon hearing Mo Yin's harsh words, Tower Master Lu only smiled faintly. The demon-slaying order can only be enhanced by the remnants of extraterritorial evil souls. Since he's been able to rise to the rank of demon-slaying king, it naturally means he's made enough contributions. He was just taking advantage of the situation. That fragment of the heavenly demon emperor's remnant soul was entirely because of our clan's ancestors' effort. He merely picked up the spoils. Black Radiance said, his face grim. Tower Master Lu shook his head and replied, how he obtained the heavenly demon emperor's remnant soul is none of my concern. What I do know is that the demon-slaying order recognizes this method and has promoted him to the rank of demon-slaying king. Moreover, no matter how you look at it, it shows that he did indeed defeat a heavenly supreme with his own hands. Even if it was just a fragment of a soul, the fact that he was able to completely erase it still counts as a great accomplishment. The purpose of our Great Thousand Palace is to eradicate extraterritorial evil clans, and since he has achieved that, we will not deny it. As he spoke, he glanced at Black Radiance and Mo Yin, then turned his attention to the 9th elder of the Floating Pagoda Ancient Clan. Slowly, he continued, I've already reported this matter to the headquarters, and their reply also acknowledges the situation. At these words, an uproar immediately erupted in the Great Thousand Pavilion. Numerous eyes, bloodshot with fury, were fixed on Mu Chen. Did this mean that, from now on, the Great Thousand Palace was truly going to have a second demon-slaying king? If that was the case, this person's status in the Great Thousand Palace would be absurdly high, so much so that even Tower Master Lu would be inferior in rank. Black Radiance and Mo Yin looked extremely displeased, and the 9th elder's face showed a hint of gloom. If the headquarters of the Great Thousand Palace truly recognized Mu Chen as the demon-slaying king, then things would get tricky. The demon-slaying king of the Great Thousand Palace held an unparalleled position in the Great Thousand World. Not to mention him, even if they met with the Grand Elder of their Floating Pagoda Ancient Clan, they would be able to converse as equals. If they truly planned to capture Mu Chen today, they would be directly going against the Great Thousand Palace, and the consequences of that would be grave. As the 9th elder of the Floating Pagoda Ancient Clan, Mou understood the strength and foundation of the Great Thousand Palace all too well. In a sense, the latter was not any weaker than their Floating Pagoda Ancient Clan. However, the Great Thousand Palace's purpose was to deal with extraterritorial evil clans, so it had never openly shown itself in the Great Thousand World. Tower Master Lu no longer paid any attention to them, but instead handed the demon-slaying order back to Mu Chen, cupping his fists and smiling. Sacred Abyss Branch, Tower Master Lu Tong, pays respects to the demon-slaying king. Mu Chen froze for a moment, then awkwardly replied, Tower Master Lu, please don't tease me. This turn of events was also a bit unexpected for him. He hadn't anticipated that the headquarters of the Great Thousand Palace would actually acknowledge his demon-slaying king title. Tower Master Lu smiled and said, the demon-slaying king holds an esteemed position in our Great Thousand Palace, even higher than my status as Branch Tower Master. So, you deserve this respect. At the side, the 9th Elder, Mou, Mo Yin, and Black Radiance all wore dark expressions. They could clearly see that Lu Tong was intentionally putting on this display for their benefit, highlighting the significance of Mu Chen's title as Demon-Slaying King. What should we do? Mo Yin's gaze flickered. Then he turned to the 9th Elder, subtly moving his lips. His words, wrapped in spiritual energy, were transmitted into the latter's ears. The 9th Elder's face remained unchanged, his withered skin barely twitching. Finally, he slowly shook his head. 9th Elder. Seeing his reaction, Black Radiance couldn't help but speak up. This was the best opportunity to capture Mu Chen. If today's events were to spread back to the clan, it might stir up some waves. In that case, it would be much harder to act decisively later on. The 9th Elder gave Black Radiance a harsh glare. Now that Mu Chen held the title of Demon-Slaying King in the Great Thousand Palace, If they truly tried to forcefully capture him in the Great Thousand Pavilion, it would be an outright slap in the face to the Great Thousand Palace. At that point, the Great Thousand Palace would not let it go easily. The ninth elder's eyes gleamed, and then he turned his gaze to Mu Chun, his expression softening slightly. Mu Chun, after all, you are a member of our Floating Pagoda Ancient Clan. If you're willing to go with us to the Floating Pagoda Ancient Clan and surrender the Eightfold Pagoda, perhaps the merits could convince the Grand Elder to release your mother. Upon hearing this, everyone couldn't help but sneer. This old man seemed to be switching tactics now that his hard approach had failed. Mu Chun lowered his head, his face betraying no emotion. He simply said, I will go to the Floating Pagoda Ancient Clan eventually, but not now. He wasn't a naive fool. He wasn't about to fall for the Ninth Elder's one-sided story. If he were captured by the Floating Pagoda Ancient Clan now, not only would the Eightfold Pagoda be lost, but they would likely use his mother as leverage to force him to comply. Once he reached the level of Heavenly Supreme and gained the strength to protect himself, he would naturally go to the Floating Pagoda Ancient Clan. Seeing that Mu Chun was completely unmoved, the Ninth Elder's expression darkened. Mu Chun, don't be ungrateful. Do you really think that just because you hold the title of Demon-Slaying King in the Great Thousand Palace, the Floating Pagoda Ancient Clan will bow to you? Then let's give it a try, Mu Chun said expressionlessly. Although the Ninth Elder was a spirit-grade Heavenly Supreme with terrifying strength, he was not completely without ways to counter him. At worst, he could call in the favor from martial ancestor. He didn't believe that the Ninth Elder would still dare to act recklessly after martial ancestor arrived. Mu Chun didn't feel ashamed about resorting to such tactics. In this world, knowing how to leverage one's power and connections was also a form of strength. The Ninth Elder's face twitched. His deep, dark eyes locked onto Mu Chun, clearly filled with intense anger. But Mu Chun simply focused on his breathing, ignoring the Ninth Elder's glare. The Ninth Elder's gaze darkened. He stared at Mu Chun for a long moment before taking a deep breath, gradually calming his anger. Lifting his eyelids, he said, I hope you won't regret this. With that, he said no more and turned to leave. Black Radiance and Moen, seeing the Ninth Elder back down, had gloomy expressions. Clearly, they were extremely unwilling, but they knew there was nothing they could do against Mu Chun today. Thus, they shot Mu Chun a bitter glance before turning and leaving in silence. Behind them, Xian Luo and Moxin had even darker looks on their faces. They never expected that despite the intervention of two spirit-grade Heavenly Supremes and one immortal-grade Heavenly Supreme, they still couldn't do anything to Mu Chun. That damn guy, his luck is truly extraordinary. They exchanged a glance, gritted their teeth. They hadn't anticipated that Mu Chun would suddenly rise to become the demon-slaying king of the Great Thousand Palace and gain the recognition of the headquarters. However, with the situation as it was, they understood that their plot to capture Mu Chun and seize the Eightfold Pagoda had failed completely. And thinking about how the Eightfold Pagoda would now be at Mu Chun's disposal filled them with resentment and anger. Their hearts surged with fury as they cast a final, resentful glance at Mu Chun before quickly following behind. Mu Chun, however, maintained a neutral expression as he watched them leave. Just as they were about to exit the Great Thousand Pavilion's doors, he finally spoke calmly. One day, I will personally go to the Futu Ancient Clan and rescue my mother. The Ninth Elder's steps paused as he was about to step out the door. He tilted his head slightly, a mocking smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. He gave Mu Chun a cold glance and said with a frigid tone, Oh, is that so? Well, I'll have someone clean out the prison cells in the clan and wait for you to come and stay. His voice dripped with disdain. A mere half-step great perfection, even with the Eightfold Pagoda, could never hope to rescue anyone from the Futu Ancient Clan. It was pure fantasy. Mu Chun's gaze, sharp as a blade, fixed on the Ninth Elder. He gave a faint smile and said, When the time comes, I'll personally experience the Ninth Elder's abilities. You arrogant child, I'll be waiting. The Ninth Elder scoffed, shaking his head, before turning and leaving. Mu Chun watched his retreating figure with a faint smile. By the time he reached the Futu Ancient Clan, he would have already ascended to the Heavenly Supreme realm. Then, He would make sure this old fool understood what it truly meant for the tide to turn. With the Futu ancient clans group leaving in a hurry, the tense atmosphere within the Great Thousand Pavilion dissipated. Many demon slayers quietly breathed a sigh of relief. If these heavenly supremes had fought here, they would have been caught in the crossfire as well. The spiritual energy around Red Flame Old Immortal began to subside as he turned around and looked at Mu Chun with a peculiar expression. He then glanced at Tower Master Lu and gave a mischievous smile. I didn't expect the Great Thousand Palace would actually recognize his identity. In that case, does this mean Mu Chun has become the weakest demon-slaying king in the history of the Great Thousand Palace? Normally, to become the demon-slaying king, one would need to possess the strength to rival the heavenly demon emperor. But clearly, Mu Chun was far from that level. Tower Master Lu rolled his eyes at Red Flame Old Immortal before his gaze shifted to Mu Chun. Follow me. It was clear that he had something to discuss privately with Mu Chun. Mu Chun nodded, cupping his hands in thanks to the River Granny of the One family for her earlier assistance, and quickly followed behind Tower Master Lu. They entered the Great Thousand Pavilion, heading into a guest room. Tower Master Lu turned to face Mu Chun and slowly said, Mu Chun, the Great Thousand Palace headquarters has recognized your demon-slaying king identity, but because your strength is still too weak, the Great Thousand Palace cannot grant you the corresponding powers of the demon-slaying king. Mu Chun wasn't surprised at all upon hearing this. Instead, he nodded slightly. He wasn't foolish enough to think that simply becoming the demon-slaying king would suddenly grant him the authority to command the Great Thousand Palace's top experts. The Palace of the Great Thousand has a profound heritage, and its power structure is equally clear. A demon-slaying king holds immense power and status. If Mu Chun himself were a spirit-grade heavenly supreme, the Palace of the Great Thousand would undoubtedly welcome his addition as the demon-slaying king. But unfortunately, he is only a half-step great perfection. Such power is clearly insufficient to support him in enjoying the privileges of the demon-slaying king within the palace. If he tried to force the issue, it would only bring trouble upon himself. After all, no one would heed the orders of a demon-slaying king whose strength was only half-step great perfection. Are you able to accept this? Tower Master Lu asked, surprised to see Mu Chun nodding calmly. Mu Chun smiled and said, I understand the Palace of the Great Thousand's position. If I were to truly assume the role of the demon-slaying king, the result would only be humiliating for me. A look of admiration flashed in Tower Master Lu's eyes. Despite his youth, Mu Chun wasn't arrogant and knew his limits. He understood what was worth pursuing and what wasn't. But don't be disheartened, Lu continued. Though you don't have the authority of a demon-slaying king, the title itself is legitimate. No matter what, if others wish to harm you, they'll have to consider the face of our Palace of the Great Thousand. And once you gain enough power and are willing to join us, the Palace of the Great Thousand can grant you the full rights of a demon-slaying king at any time, Tower Master Lu added. Then I thank you, Tower Master, Mu Chun said, cupping his fists with a smile. He felt no dissatisfaction with the palace's decision, and their earlier intervention to help him had already earned his gratitude. Lu smiled and then said, also, while your position as the demon-slaying king might be somewhat honorary, the demon-slaying points are real. Mu Chun froze, and then a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. Are you saying I can use these demon-slaying points? The demon-slaying points in the Palace of the Great Thousand could be exchanged for many valuable items, including various grades of sacred artifacts, supreme dharmakayas, spiritual pills, and even supreme divine abilities. These were highly sought-after treasures. Earlier, Mu Chun had been concerned that his role as the demon-slaying king might have been a mere formality, so he hadn't considered that the demon-slaying points could be useful. But now, it seemed that Tower Master Lu was suggesting he could exchange them for valuable items. Seeing the excitement in Mu Chun's eyes, Tower Master Lu smiled and nodded before turning and heading toward the inner hall. Follow me. Mu Chun's face lit up with joy as he quickly followed. They walked through several halls and finally arrived at a tightly sealed storeroom. With a wave of his sleeve, Tower Master Lu unleashed a brilliant spiritual light on the bronze door, which creaked open slowly. As the door opened, a flood of dazzling treasure light rushed out, momentarily blinding Mu Chun. When his eyes adjusted and he looked inside, he couldn't help but gasp. The enormous storeroom was filled with floating crystal spheres. Each sphere emitted a dazzling light, clearly containing extraordinary treasures. Truly worthy of the palace of the Great Thousand, Chen murmured, unable to hold back his admiration. The palace, even just a branch, had such a vast and rich treasure hoard. Its depth was incomparable to any ordinary force. Tower Master Lu led him inside and said, "Each crystal ball is labeled with a price. If you like something and have enough demon-slaying points, you can exchange them." Chen's eyes shone with excitement. He quickly stepped forward, his gaze scanning the glistening crystal balls. High-level sacred artifact, Heavenly Flame Spear, 800 demon-slaying points. Great Perfection Divine Ability, Minor Light Finger, 1,100 demon-slaying points. The 10,000 Woods Revival Physique, ranked 39th on the Supreme Dharmakaya list, 1,300 demon-slaying points. The crystal balls contained a dazzling array of treasures, and Chen couldn't help but be impressed. However, at his current level, he wasn't particularly interested in ordinary high-level sacred artifacts or great perfection divine abilities. "Tower Master Lu, do you have anything higher?" Chen asked. Lu smiled and gestured to the left side of the room. "Over there, most of them are semi-legendary sacred artifacts. I think they would be suitable for you." Generally speaking, legendary sacred artifacts were reserved for heavenly supreme beings, so semi-legendary sacred artifacts were the strongest treasures available to those not yet at the heavenly supreme level. Chen heard the words and immediately quickened his pace. At this point, he was indeed very interested in the peerless sacred artifact. After all, with the Heavenly Emperor's sword having exhausted its power, he truly needed a high-level treasure in hand. His steps halted beside a crystal ball the size of a human head. His gaze fell upon it, and inside, he saw a black whip slowly spinning. The whip was covered in barbs, shimmering with a cold, eerie light. Each segment of the whip seemed to be engraved with ancient runes, wriggling as if alive, giving off a strange sensation. Chen looked at the black whip, a look of slight recognition crossing his face. This whip is called the Divine Binding Whip, a near-peerless sacred artifact. It is forged from the branches and leaves of the ancient mandala flower. Given that it has reached this level, the mandala flower must have attained the rank of Heavenly Supreme, said Lu Tong with a smile from the side. "So it's made from the branches and leaves of the mandala flower," Chen said, now understanding. No wonder it felt somewhat familiar. This item was indeed quite impressive. If given to Mandala, it would certainly unleash powerful strength in her hands. After leaving Sacred Abyss City, Chen had planned to return to the Tianluo continent first. After all, Mu Manor had only been established recently, and as its lord, if he stayed away for too long, even with Mandala's help, it would cause unrest. He decided to take the Divine Binding Whip as a gift for Mandala. After all, she had been helping him manage Mu Manor, and it was no small effort. He glanced at the price, 2,000 Demon Slayer points, which was within his budget. He immediately took out the Demon Slayer token, swiped it across the crystal ball, and after a flash of light, the crystal ball slowly floated toward him. He waved his hand and took it. With the Divine Binding Whip in hand, Chen did not stop, but continued forward. Before long, he found another item that caught his eye. It appeared to be an exquisite earring crafted from crystal, with a pendant containing a jade-like green liquid. It was these strange liquids that gave the earring its unique nature. "You have quite the eye for this, huh? This is celestial spirit jade marrow, formed from spiritual energy in the earth that has been compressed for countless years. Wearing it will greatly increase one's cultivation speed, making it a precious item for enhancing cultivation. However, it's useless for a heavenly supreme, so it can only be classified as a near-peerless sacred artifact," Lu Tong said, seeing Chen's gaze. He couldn't help but smile. Chen pondered for a moment. The celestial spirit jade marrow would be perfect for Luo Li. At her current level as a lower earth supreme, this item would greatly benefit her cultivation. He looked at the exchange price, 3,000 Demon Slayer points, which surprised him. It seemed that items for cultivation were indeed more expensive, but for Luo Li, none of this mattered. With a wave of his hand, he exchanged for it. "Good lad, really spending generously to make the girl smile," Lu Tong chuckled, seeing the item was clearly for a woman. Mu Chen's generosity was obvious. He was giving it to his little lover. Hearing the teasing, Mu Chen smiled too. He glanced at the Demon Slayer token and was surprised to see that he had already spent half of his Demon Slayer points in such a short time. He inwardly clicked his tongue. No wonder so many Demon Slayers spend their entire lives in the Sacred Abyss continent, earning Demon Slayer points. Next, let's see if there's a near peerless sacred artifact that suits me. Mu Chen pondered for a moment, then with some anticipation, continued deeper into the area. After searching for quite a while, he finally came to a stop. His gaze fell upon the nearby crystal ball with a strange look in his eyes. Inside, there was no peerless sacred artifact, but instead, a golden liquid that resembled jelly slowly flowing within. A peculiar fluctuation emanated from the golden liquid. This is... Mu Chen narrowed his eyes, a hint of surprise flashing in his expression. Is this golden spirit-shattering essence?